I want to say that if we were to interview every single person in this room, I bet we would get that number of different ideas about what the nature of God is. And I think that's okay. And I certainly have no intention to change your mind or to convince you about something else, but we need to talk about something, okay? So, again, whatever your and it needs to be that way, because whatever God is, you and I are going to perceive that in different ways, yes? Right? Okay. So, there are many different versions of the 5 basic unity principles, which should tell you something about unity. It's very inclusive, it's very open, and we're changing our mind all the time. And that's okay. That's in fact, Charles Fillmore said, I reserve the right to change my mind. Because otherwise it becomes just another dogma, right? Right? We're not into dogmas. So, I took these versions from our beautiful website. Thank you, Phyllis. I'm not sure when this wording kind of got changed a little bit over the years, but I like it. So, principle number 1 is there is, and this might sound a little familiar, there is only one presence and one power in the universe and as my life. God the good. That's principle number 1. Shall I repeat it? Yeah. There is only one presence and one power active in the universe and as my life. God the good. Okay? Number 2 is about our relationship to that. And again, for me, 1 and 2 go together because you and I believe in some sort of oneness with God. Yes? Why would we make 2 principles out of oneness? I don't know. So they not only go together, but I think that you and I do enough separating of them on our own. So, Hillary and I, some of you remember, became the spiritual leaders here about 2,000 years ago. So everything I'm about to say about Jesus is okay because we knew him personally. So one of the first things that we changed when we came aboard was our offering blessing, which we're getting to later. We used to say divine love through me, and we changed it to divine love as me, because through me, for us, suggested some kind of separation, right? So I like this as thing, and I'm really happy that we have put as in on the first principle. As my life. I love that. When we were going through our metaphysical studies and our ministry studies, our metaphysics teacher did not like as. I was going to write a whole book about prepositions, by the way, because they're very meaningful to a lot of people, and they change things with just one little word. So he didn't like as, because for him that was like pretending. That was like God dresses up on Halloween as you and me. But I'm like, who else would God dress up as on Halloween besides you and me? So I'm okay with as. And I looked at the word as, and it means something that fortunately I have written down. It means in the role of or being. So, does anybody have a problem with God being you? God being you, God being me. One power and one presence active as my life. God being me. And then number 2 is simply, as Hillary said, we are that. Folks, just breathe this in for a second. It's not like you and I have this presence and power within us. You and I are this presence and power. Does that make a difference? It would certainly make a difference if we remembered it. It doesn't make any difference otherwise, does it? They're just words. They're very nice words. They're our words, so I like them a lot. But they're just words, right? So what does it mean if there's one presence and one power active as our life? Then what are all these other powers and presences that show up in our life? Who invited them? Point to yourself. And I'll point to myself. I forget that there's only one presence and one power active as my life. I forget that that is anything good sometimes, let alone all love, all power, all presence, all the creative expression, all the creative energy in this universe is you and me. Folks, just that means that everything good and beautiful and true that you ever see in the universe is not only, again, in you, but is you. I am that. Can you say that? I am that. You know, again, your concept of God may make it harder for you to say, I am that. And I'm not standing here saying, God is who I am. I'm not. It's more for me, it's God is what I am. And so when I look at God as a being out there with these, you know, like all-knowing, it's harder for me to say I am that. But if I look at God as, if I take all the love in the universe, all the power in the universe, all the presence in the universe, all the creative energy in the universe, and throw in all the stuff in the universe, then I've got God, or something closer to God. Right? Yes? Doesn't matter. So, you know, again, as the key thing is right here and right now, you are the full expression of whatever your concept of God is. Whew, you know, as Eckhart Tolle says, there's a life we are and a life we have. The life we are is the full expression of God. The life we have is the stuff. The schmutz, the drama, the angst, the divisiveness we see every day on TV, all that stuff, that's the life we have, but we're the ones who have separated the two. And we are the only ones who can reunite those two. And it's really, really cool to know that no matter what the life we have looks like, there's still the life we are there. Through, around, in, over, under, everywhere. Would that be helpful to remember? It'd be helpful for me to remember. Hillary, will you remind me? Yeah. So the key there is the here and now part. Ty's not here, but he used to like to say, God never leaves, but I do. Right? So, God can't be me if I am not here. God can't be me unless I'm present, I'm open, I'm receptive to that, and I'm focused on that as the truth of me. And this becomes the challenge. And this becomes a challenge. Paige would probably agree with me here. None of my dogs have ever expressed this challenge. They always know who they are. They always know they are joy. And if something happens to interfere with that joy for a second, they shrug it off and they pick up another stick that's just as joyful. Right? Excuse me. I forgot I had this. And I'm sorry, it doesn't match my shirt at all. All right, put it right here. Okay, you can remind me of this.
You can't keep talking with your pocket showing. Sorry.
It's a pretty light blue, isn't it? What do you think, Zoom folks? Anyway. So, you know, pine trees. God being a pine tree. Right? Think about that. God being a pine tree means that tree over there can stand there for a few hundred years. It can weather all kinds of storms and droughts and all kinds of stuff. And more than that, it means it has everything it needs to be a beautiful, thriving pine tree. Right? And you know, some years it might create more pollen for you and I to choke on than other years, but it's still a God being a tree, and the tree never forgets that, I assume. So God being you means that you also have everything you need to flourish and to thrive. Even in the appearance of lack or limitation or schmutz or stuckness or whatever you want to call it, whatever, that we never stop being God as us. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the way. I am the way. You are the way. You are the way that all those God qualities come into this world. They don't get here otherwise. They don't come on Fox News or the other one. Do they? No. So, but when we think we're anything but God being us, when we think we are our roles or our stuff, we think when we are here to be victims of circumstance, when we think we're weak or deficient or lacking or whatever, then we are no longer the way, we are in the way. And I never read the second principle, did I? Second principle from our website, our essence is of God, therefore we are inherently good. I am that. And most second principles include something about Jesus, as do ours. This God essence was fully expressed in Jesus the Christ. But please, the way most unity people look at that is Jesus was the example of what is possible for all of us, not the exception. What he did was he took the life that he was and united it completely with the life that he had. And you and I can do that too. But we can't do that if we don't believe that. We can't do that if we think we're something else. We can't do that, in the words of Jesus, if we serve two masters. And this one might be hard to swallow, folks. Are you ready to swallow? God being you, to me, means that you are perfect, just the way you are. And that doesn't mean you can't get better. Perfect means completely done for this moment. You are absolutely perfect in this moment. You know, if you take a loaf of bread out halfway through its cooking time, it's not going to taste really good, but it is perfect for that moment, is it not? Isn't it? Or if you look at an acorn, it doesn't look like a perfect oak tree, but everything in it that's required to be a perfect oak tree is there. Perfect. So there was a famous metaphysician actually was not a Unity minister, because Unity decided not to confer ministry upon him, just like us. So we have a lot in common with Emmett Fox, who was a very, very wonderful writer. And he used to talk about our true place and our right place, okay? Our true place was our divinity. Our true place was full knowledge and awareness that God and I are one. That's our true place. And our right place is exactly where we are. Because the only way to get to our true place is from our right place. And I think that living and embodying the first two principles requires us to not only be present, but to be okay with what is present in the present. Want me to repeat that? Forget about it. There's no way. We are always in the right place because God is always being us and is always tapping at the door of our consciousness, calling softly all the time, urging us toward our true place. But again, we can only answer the call if we're here. So when you and I realize that we are serving other masters, do you know what I'm talking about here? When you're giving your power away to something other than God being you, whether it's politics or science, or your own ego, your own fears, what other people think, any of those things, any of those worldly things. We are serving two masters, and we are dissipating our energy, our power, our love. So when you realize you are serving master number 2, or 3, or 400, instead of, I'm talking to myself here too, folks. Instead of wondering why, instead of blaming myself, instead of any kind of mental gymnastics or resistance, my suggestion is we can just jump right back into that knowing that God is being me right here and always. I would suggest maybe if we are realizing we're serving other masters, let's take one moment before we leave and see what's there for us, okay? And I have a feeling if we do that and we look deeply, what's there for us is a deep desire to remember that God is being me right now and always. In that moment, there is absolutely nothing stopping us from stepping fully into love and saying, I am that. Can you take some more good news? Because some of you look depressed. I know, you're just thinking. So for me, God being you also means that there is a unique and unrepeatable, should have done that song, unique and unrepeatable way that God works in this world, and that is as you. So for one thing, that means that you and I don't have to try being someone else. How can God be me while I'm trying to be someone else? Robert Brialt, who apparently is an opera singer, said, "Why try to be someone you're not? Life is hard enough without adding impersonation to the skills required." Why try to be someone you're not? Life is hard enough without adding impersonation to the skills required. That should have been the quote, huh? Phyllis, yeah. So have you heard the story about the guy who apparently dies, and he's standing for God, and he's bemoaning the state of the world and all the pain and all the anguish, and he's like, why didn't you send any help? And God says, I did send help. I sent you. So it's a great story, and it reminds me that God is all there is, and God is all there will ever be, and that each and every one of us represents unlimited possibilities for good in this world. And I think the way that begins, and silly to talk about how it begins because you guys are well on the path, but maybe the way that we can continue on this path is to fully embody these first two principles. God is, and we are that. Claiming our birthright, seeing the good and the beautiful and the true, and affirming often, I am that. You are that. You are that, and more. Apparently, I thought of something to say. So let's close our eyes for a moment. Precious Spirit of love, precious. Thank you. Thank you for being right there. No, we just have to see it. Thank you for being always active, always available, always accessible, nearer than our next breath, closer than our own hands and feet, right there, right here, right now, and always. God is, we are that. And we are so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Amen.
Wow, that was just amazing, Stu. Thank you so much. It's like, I love it when it's like that message was for me, and how many felt the same way, right? Yeah, see you raise your hands. It's like, don't you just love how that happens? It's like those messages just come in perfect timing. So right now, we would like to take this opportunity to say hi to all of our people on Zoom, if that's possible. Hey! Hey, Laura, Chrissy, Linda, Lenny, and Lois. Welcome, Lois. Yay! Yeah, welcome for coming. And if anyone is here for the first time, please raise your hand. We'd like to bring you a welcome package. And if you're on Zoom and you would like to have that welcome package, just type your name and address into the chat,